Craig, welcome to the show. Good morning to you. You were there on Saturday night at the party. I'm sorry I wasn't. Have you got COVID? Because everybody else seems to have.
No, I don't. I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, that's good. Well, you see, you well to start with, though, weren't you? Healthy man, climbing all those mountains, all that sort of stuff. Listen, just quietly, Craig, the reaction of business to the election campaign. I haven't seen the stock market suddenly go into, up yet, or a whole series of business people doing cartwheels Sunday morning. What is the reaction?
I think it's a matter of fact reaction to the shift from the centre left to the centre right, which was wanted by business. The issue for business is, while 80% in the Herald Moon of the Boardroom survey wanted ACT National Coalition, only 5% wanted ACT National and New Zealand First. So there's some trepidation which is basically due to the specials, and the count that is yet to be finished in the next couple of weeks. And until that's clear, I think you'll find people will just be waiting patiently in a political sense for the outcome to determine what the coalition looks like. There's no question in my mind that people want a coalition agreement. They want a list of policy changes that the parties, 2 or 3, will agree on. What they're less certain of is the implications of a threesome in the room as opposed to a couple.
Having said that, is this just the selfishness of business? Because I'm looking at New Zealand First and I'm looking at their policies and I'm going, I can't see much there that would particularly trouble me. I can't see anything there that would scare the horses.
And I agree. So when we looked at the policies last week, there's lots of policies in common between ACT and New Zealand First, for example. And one policy that's very clear across all 3 is law and order, for example. And 2 of the 3 parties, well, even the third, actually, when I look at New Zealand First policies, are keen on some sort of tax reform, tax cuts. And the two or three issues that National's less keen on around COVID mandates, the Royal Commission of Inquiry, gender issues that New Zealand First is bringing up, etc. So will those social issues come to the top of the policy pile? Will depend on negotiation skills of 3 parties.
Can I go through those that particularly are going to affect the economy and business, the National's 100-day action plan with you, and just see if maybe some of the trepidation comes from that? The first one is they're going to remove, they won't do it immediately, I wouldn't have thought, the Auckland regional fuel tax, which adds 11.5% per litre if you're up in Auckland. And that's going to be, actually it was number 1, actually. I don't know how well that went down with Auckland. Obviously Auckland voted for them on Saturday. So is that going to cause any upset to business at all? Is that good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent?
Well, I think there are a couple of issues in there. One is it's a reduction in taxes, which is helpful from a cost of living perspective for Aucklanders. But the bigger picture issue is central local government and how they work together. You'll note that ACT is pretty clear on sharing revenue with councils through GST, for example. So as part of the bigger picture of moving away from these kind of odd isolated taxes to a more comprehensive consideration of how we incentivise councils to encourage growth, one way to do that is to share revenue. Because 90% of taxation goes to central government, which is unusual in the Western world, where we're highly centralised from a tax perspective, and we don't do much in the way of decentralised taxation other than rates. So ACT has a role to play here in saying, well, you've got to remove the regional fuel tax. We need to consider other ways of providing revenue streams to councils to help them grow, or have incentives to grow their local economies.
Now, the other two, straight under that, and there are the first 3 bullet points of National, when they released their 100-day plan, are all related to the economy. And I guess this is where there might be some differences. The second is to remove the Reserve Bank's dual mandate to get the bank focused on simply putting the lid back on inflation. As you know, Labor added the bit about employment, having regard to employment. And the third one was restore the 90-day employment trial periods for all businesses. National might find a bit of trouble with New Zealand First on those two, or not, do you think?
Oh, no, I think there'd be absolute agreement amongst the three parties to remove the second mandate that was put in 2017. I think that's a very clear win for all three. It gets the Reserve Bank clarity on what they focus on. And as we spoke about many times in the last few months, inflation is a thief in the night, and it's a more concern to everybody than, for example, as you mentioned a few weeks ago, interest rates. So to get that back in the tin, a clarity around the mandate with a single objective would be desirable, and I think all three parties would support it.
That'll be interesting, because Winston, when I knew him, just so that you know, always argued that there should be other objectives for the Reserve Bank. He might have changed his role on that one, though. The 90-day employment trial, that's a key one. The idea that you can work for 90 days for an employer and they can get rid of you without having to give you a reason just because it's not working out. Is that something that you expect there to be a bit of a fight on?
I don't think so. Winston is more focused on social issues than necessarily economic ones. When I read through his list of kind of wants that he has, sort of tax incentives, development opportunities for the northern regions, reductions in GST on food, which is not going to happen, looking at spend on Farm Act and John Plunket, $100 million increase in upgrades to the transmission lines. So he's sort of silent on those pieces. So I would expect in a coalition negotiation there would be trade-offs. So it depends really what the other two parties want and what they're prepared to trade if Winston is in the mix. Yeah,
I'll tell you the other thing. I'm looking now at their commitment, New Zealand First, to, and in actual fact, you'll like them for this. The first point, New Zealand First 7-point solution for the cost of living crisis, which they released as their party policy, balance the budget to take the heat off interest rates and inflation. So that was the first thing that they said. Use policies to get our economy out of the red and back to black responsibly. And then the first bullet point says, New Zealand First commits to orthodox economic solutions and not economic extremism for the far left or the far right. New Zealand has studied the Irish Celtic Tiger success, along with the successes of Singapore and Iceland, and believe that these are much more sound models than economic experimentalism, whatever that is. You've studied Ireland. Have you also looked at Singapore and Iceland in your travels, Craig?
No, the other two that the NZ Initiative studied were Switzerland and Denmark, so small OECD nations that have got a highly literate workforce that are also strongly connected to the rest of the world. Not saying that Iceland or Singapore aren't, but we've just done three. The features of Ireland, though, that is not on this common to all three, but it's touched on by at least one of the coalition parties, is improving our foreign direct investment regime. We were very impressed at Ireland's openness to bringing in global companies to set up in Ireland at a concessional tax rate, which worries some people around giving concessional tax rates to companies. But the benefit from the revenue stream that's captured has meant that economy, that nation, that group of people have now got an economy that's 2.5 times the size of New Zealand, same population, and they started with us equally in terms of the size of their economy in 1990. And it's just incredible. And it's the openness and the willingness to embrace that, provide jobs for people is wonderful. We seem to have a view that foreigners aren't welcome here. And I think we're a small closed economy and a small open economy relative to others that we have seen.